If you walk through central India today, you'll eventually hit a massive expanse of silence. Just dry earth, scattered among the boulders, and the crumbling remains of stone foundations that nature has spent centuries reclaiming. But 500 years ago, this quiet stretch of rock housed a population that rivaled Beijing and Rome. It was one of the wealthiest, most technologically advanced megacities on the planet. Traders from Europe, Persia, and Arabia traveled for months to reach these exact coordinates, seeking international markets overflowing with raw gold, diamonds, and silk. The obvious question is, how does a thriving global metropolis, the anchor of an entire economic hemisphere, die and empty out almost overnight? To figure out how this rapid erasure happened, we first have to look at the extreme geopolitical pressure cooker that forced this city to exist. In 1336 CE, two brothers, Harihara I and Bukaraya I, stood on the banks of the Tungabhadra River. Here, they laid the foundation for the Vijayanagara Empire. The northern half of the subcontinent was in constant turmoil. Vijayanagara was built strictly as a unified geographic shield to protect the southern peninsula from relentless northern invasions. This defensive strategy required immense scale to work. Over the following decades, the empire's borders expanded aggressively until they swallowed the entire southern tip of the Indian subcontinent. By securing that massive coastline, the empire captured an accidental monopoly. Every highly lucrative maritime trade route connecting to Persia, Arabia, and Europe now passed directly through their guarded ports. The profit from those international routes was funneled inland, straight into the capital city of Hampi. What began as a military stronghold rapidly mutated into an economic juggernaut. The strict defense that kept northern armies at bay created an insulated bubble of stability. Inside that protective barrier, the empire amassed limitless wealth. You can still see exactly what they did with that capital. The architecture in Hampi pushed the limits of the era, anchored by towering, multi-tiered temples dominating the skyline. Their engineers commanded absolute precision. This is a highly detailed chariot, complete with massive turning wheels and heavy elephant figures, carved entirely out of solid stone. Inside the halls, the engineering borders on the impossible. They designed clusters of granite pillars that actually produce precise musical notes when tapped. Managing a booming population required massive urban planning. Looking down at these meticulously organized walled courtyards, you can trace the complex infrastructure required to sustain hundreds of thousands of daily residents. The state's physical power required its own monumental architecture. These grand domed arches served as the royal elephant stables, built to quarter the living heavy armor of the empire's military. By the mid-1500s, this combination of architectural genius, military infrastructure, and limitless wealth made Vijayanagara appear completely invincible. Just north of the border, the neighboring Deccan sultanates watched this expansion closely. Historically, these northern kingdoms were heavily fractured, spending most of their resources fighting each other over territory. The overwhelming military and economic weight of Vijayanagara left them cornered. Facing total irrelevance, those divided northern kingdoms laid down decades of bad blood and formed a single, unified alliance. The pressure finally snapped in January 1565. The united armies marched south, meeting the empire's forces head-on at the Battle of Talikota. Despite their immense resources, the southern lines eventually collapsed. The unified enemy alliance decisively crushed the Vijayanagara forces. The impenetrable shield Vijayanagara built to protect the south became the exact target that forced its enemies to unite and destroy it. The battlefield victory was only the first step. What followed was the targeted, systemic assassination of a city. The victorious forces crossed into Hampi and spent several months tearing the metropolis apart. They stripped the markets of their wealth, burned the commercial centers to the ground, and forced a mass exodus of the surviving population. The massive international trade networks immediately collapsed. The busy, paved avenues of the capital went completely silent. Over the following centuries, the farce terrain and heavy jungle canopy crept back in, swallowing the remaining stone monuments and erasing the empire from living memory. Today, the site holds the title of a UNESCO World Heritage location. But the thousands of people who visit these ruins are walking through the archaeological graveyard of a fallen superpower. The scattered stones of Hampi prove a chilling historical reality. You can build the most advanced infrastructure on Earth and control global trade, but even the wealthiest empires can be entirely erased in the blink of an eye.